Good morning, it's 9 a.m., Monday, February 28th, 2022. This is the Muscatine County Board of Supervisors. First, I'd like to call a meeting to order.
Move to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Next is review the agenda.
So that was a.
Okay.
That's what it was.
Move to approve the agenda, I was second, okay, we're good.
You got me out of wild.
I did get you out of whack, sorry.
Who was the
Next is
motion?
bid letting for,
Santos and Sorensen. Okay, thank you.
next is bid letting for project LCUL 227370, pipe culverts at various locations throughout the county with County Engineer Keith White. Possible action to accept the bid. Morning, Keith.
You have bids for us, Tabby? No?
Pardon me?
You have bids for us?
Right there.
You had to check it in first.
We'll open these in the order received, and, we'll just read totals, and for everybody that did, or frankly, anybody that asks, will get a detailed summary. First is from PCI, Peterson Contractors, Inc. of Rhinebeck, Iowa. We have an Iowa DOT bid bond.
Yeah,
Okay, I have a total of $386,241.50. 386,241.50. The next is from Stager Construction, Inc. of Dyersville, Iowa. Also have an Iowa DOT bid bond. A total of $412,649. 412-649-00. The next is from Triple B Construction of Wilton, Iowa. We have an AIA bid bond. We have a total of $406,670. 406-670-00. The next is from DeLong Construction, Inc. of Washington, Iowa. We have an Iowa DOT bid bond. We have a total of $468,873.70. 468,873.70. And we have one from Brandt Construction Company of Milan, Illinois. We also have an Iowa DOT bid bond. Okay, we have a total of $442,535.25. 442,535. Reminder that unit prices govern. So we'll check the math, and I think we got time before I'm up again on the agenda to recommend award.
Okay. Thank you, Keith.
Thanks, everybody, for bidding.
Thank you. Okay, next up is a public hearing on the proposed FY 22-23 Muscatine County maximum property tax dollars for general county services and rural county services. We are in a public hearing. If anyone would like to address the board in that regard. Seeing no one come forward.
Related to the levy stuff?
Oh,
That's the next
No.
item.
That's different.
I'll move to close the public hearing.
I've got a motion by Jeff, second by Nathan to close the public hearing. This is a roll call vote. Jeff?
Aye.
Nathan?
Aye.
I vote aye. Santos?
Aye.
Doug?
Aye.
Public hearing is closed. Next is discussion and possible action to approve resolution 02282201, approval of FY 22-23 maximum property tax dollars.
Move to approve. Second.
I've got a motion by Jeff, a second by Santos. This is a roll call vote. Jeff?
Aye.
Nathan?
Aye.
I vote aye. Santos?
I vote aye.
And Doug?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Just want to make a comment on that, just appreciate the staff's time and ability to be able to lower that. Going back in from 1058 to 985, so it's a huge plus for us, and thank you, Sherry, and your team for working on this.
All
That's
right.
all I have.
Next is public hearing on proposal to enter into a general obligation levy improvement loan agreement in an amount not to exceed $3,400,000 to finance the Muscatine Louisa Island Levy Project Phase 2. We are in a public hearing. Would you like to speak on this issue, sir?
Yeah, well, first I gotta apologize, cause I really don't know the background.
Could you step to the podium and state your name and address, please?
Yeah, Stephen Derricks. 1711 Dale Avenue, Muscatine. Yeah, I seen the article in the Durant World paper about what your subject is here, and I just caused me to think of a lot of questions, and I don't know any of the background on it. I think you've had probably been to a lot of these meetings in the past to really know what's going on, but I guess is this something new that's related with FEMA, Corps of Engineers and stuff, or exactly what is the background of the levee and floodplain projects?
Okay. I'd probably let Jeff address this. He's probably better versed at this than probably any of us.
Well, this is a long and interesting, project, started back in 2013, I don't know. So, over the years, what has happened is in the island, what we've known as the island area down south and the levee, it's come to the attention over the last few years that we have an incipient point where the water will overtop the levee in the place of a breach. So there's been efforts to try to raise the levee and some things like that over the years. Well, you're just not gonna get that done. So one of the things that a suggestion of the Corps a number of years ago, a process that we might go through would be we already have authorization at where it would breach, which is some right down by Baker Street. Maple Grove Road, I guess it is actually, by Baker Feeds, right? That's where the water would overtop and inundate the island. There was an inundation study done in 2013, I believe, that shows that the whole island would be about 12 feet underwater within several hours in the event of a breach. So what this project is to do is to raise that incipient point, so when it breaches, it won't breach there. And move it down to the south end, down more by the pumping station, known as Drainage District 13, and then to harden that incipient point. In other words, so when it does overtop, it won't actually erode the levee and we won't lose the levee. We'll have to deal with water. So that was really what the project was. It was a project that there was a lot of work done, a lot of money invested on studies, and we really couldn't get it funded. And then about 2 years ago, basically EDA, I don't know if you know who EDA is, it's the Economic Development Agency, a federal agency, had some grant dollars available through some of the flooding after, like what happened out west on the Missouri and some of that. The Chicago office, which we work with, had about 3.4 million. We applied for a grant and were granted that money. There is a local match to that dollar. So this is about a $12.9 million project, of which the county is looking to support about $3.5 million on this phase.
Okay, so how does that tie into people that currently pay levy taxes and drainage taxes and stuff like that? And is there any relationship to that? And I guess the reason I ask is, my understanding is the drainage taxes, like 30% people are paying for 100% of the tax. And this tax you're talking about now, put it into the general basic, I guess is what I understand. Now, is that throughout the entire county, or?
No, that doesn't go into the general basic fund. This would be, anything would come out of our debt services funds, but actually, this is funded a little bit differently. We've actually lowered our debt service fund, and what we are doing with this initiative is we are bonding this money and paying off other higher cost debt. So what the net result of this, in effect, will be is a lower debt service payment for the Muscatine County taxpayers.
Okay, well, I don't understand all those taxes, but except for the ones I pay, which, like I say, happens to be the drainage and the levy, apparently, and so I'm still confused as to the 3.4 million. That's gonna turn into a loan and then turn into tax. And who all's gonna pay for that tax? The entire county, or?
Yes, the entire county pays part of that tax.
Well, there seems to be a little controversy, or different ways of, for the drainage tax, for example. Okay, that's those people down there, farmland and stuff. They're the only ones that pay for it,
Right.
because it apparently doesn't affect people up on the bluff or people of Muscatine. Whereas your levy tax, or your, improving levies and drainage, you're telling me I'm gonna pay that tax as well in my county taxes? Because it would seem like a double set of standards if I'm paying for the drainage tax and no one else around is paying for the drainage tax, but I live clear on the east end of Muscatine and you want me to pay on the levy tax, it's like a double standard there, if you understand what I'm saying with respect to taxes. So I guess I would highly recommend that you take whatever you're doing with the levy tax now and the drainage tax and embed it into this new tax and, you know, spread it out amongst the population the same way you're gonna do with this levy tax. Instead of putting it on 30% of the people that's, if you understand what I'm saying. Did you get it, or did I lose you, or?
No,
So doesn't it seem like a double standard if you want me to pay for taxes in the levy and I live clear and some places not affected, but at the same time I'm paying for a drainage tax, but nobody around me has to pay because they're not affected? There's a little bit of disconnect there, I think it needs to be looked at as far as I'm concerned.
So we don't control the drainage tax, correct? Is that the way we
the
understand
the
it?
drainage district is a separate, and the levy
Yeah.
district are separate entities.
Isn't there a levy tax too that's separate?
There's a levy
along with the
this
drainage
is,
tax?
the Muscatine Loiza Island Levy District, has a tax as well, yes.
Yeah,
But we don't control that.
well, you control the taxes, I
We
guess.
control, yeah, we control, like for
Taxing
this.
a small group of people here for what you think is theirs, and now you're gonna tax a whole group of people for what is
Well, the,
unrelated.
so a lot of what we went looking into this, and I think the challenge that we have when we look at the overall levy is the economic impact that it could possibly do, not just due to those that live in that drainage district, but when you start thinking about our actual well fields, all of the businesses that are associated there. When you think about, like, if you farm, you know, if you provide corn and your corn goes to like Kent Feeds or GPC, you know, and those are all right alongside that levy, we think about that impact that would actually do. What if you couldn't provide it for them? So then we start thinking about how is it any different than somebody that sells corn in West Liberty or in Wilton, and their farms are all directly impacted by that same levy. And so, I mean, it's difficult for us to look at that, but when you start thinking about the jobs that they're right alongside that levy, there are, I mean, thousands of jobs, not including the same well field that provides water for us here up on the hill, on West Hill, versus or somebody that's down there. So that's really when we started thinking about that. It really is kind of a more of a county-driven, you know, initiative. We can't control the drainage district. That is out of our realm. I think those are discussions that we're wanting to try to incorporate in our thought process, but it's right now, there's legislation that we don't have that's out of our control to be able to say, hey, you shouldn't be paying a double tax. But the levy district is I mean, the levy project that we're doing here is in two phases. One of them is to help rebuild that pump, which is part of what's started already. The second part is the actual raising of that and that hardening, that incipient point. Both of those are actual projects that are critical in our sense, even though it's in Loiza County, it is directly, everything that we're doing is affecting Muscatine County. So we're not, in a sense, going over
I
that
understand
aspect
that,
of.
but like I say, I'm already paying the levy tax, I guess, my understanding. So now you're gonna give me another levy tax on top of the levy tax I pay, or maybe
Well,
you're gonna take
again, the
existing levy
drainage,
tax
the
and incorporate it
drainage,
into
the drainage district and the actual levy, the levy tax is completely two different things. We don't control the drainage districts.
Right,
What they put
that's two
upon you,
separate
that's a third,
taxes.
yes, and so we can't change that, we can't
Levy.
adjust that. That's not out of,
I
that's,
pay those two additional taxes.
that is
Of
some,
the normal property taxes.
yeah.
Now you're telling me you're gonna tax me again on the levy when I'm already paying the
Again,
tax.
so again,
What- I'm missing something here.
well, again,
So are your property is in the Muscatine Island Levy District?
I've got some property there, yeah.
So you would prefer to see that 3.4 million taxed against that property only?
It's already taxed
Well,
against
your
that.
tax
No,
would-
No, vice
Your
versa.
tax would go
You're getting
probably
backwards.
10 times.
You're getting backwards. You got it turned around there, okay? What I'm saying is, I'm paying a drainage tax, I'm paying a levy tax.
Yes.
Now you're gonna come up with a new tax that's gonna be spread throughout the county, even though I've got property clear on the other side of the county, has no effect of drainage or levy or nothing. But you're gonna tax me for that, whereas I've got ground down there now that I'm the only one taxed for. But like I say, 30% of the people are paying for 100% of the tax. My understanding is because GPC and Muscatine, you know, had real good lawyers compared to the little group of farmers down there.
What, the way I think I
Tax.
understand it, sir, is that the state has put the obligation to maintain the levees and the drainage on these districts, and we can't do anything about that.
Good, there you go.
Hang on, so that's the first set of taxes you're paying, right? On the property you've got down there, you're paying the levy, you're paying drainage.
Yeah.
This is, although it affects the levy, you know, we're of the opinion that it affects if the levy were to breach in any one of these places, the entire Muscatine Island would be flooded within, like Jeff said, within a few hours. And the impact on Muscatine County as a whole would be devastating. So are you saying that you would like to see everybody pay for all the levy and all the drainage, as opposed to having these drainage and levy districts? Or are you saying only the levy and drainage district people should be paying for the levy?
No, I think it should spread the wealth, just like you're wanting to do with this 3.4 million.
Well,
You
and
wanna
that's-
put it on the
that-
county.
that's a Des Moines
You wanna
issue.
put it on the whole
Yeah.
county in the general, okay?
And
For the
that's,
levy down here, I understand, okay, but just compare it to what exists,
Right.
right,
okay?
I don't necessarily disagree with you, I'm just saying
And I'm
that's
not sure
that's the
exactly
point.
where my taxes for the levy go right now versus what this tax is gonna do for the levy and flood.
Yeah, I mean, that,
I mean,
Des Moines is the one who's given the control to the levy and drainage districts, so those taxes you're paying that only you and the folks with property in those areas are paying, that's something you gotta take to the State House, we don't have any ability to affect that.
And the drainage district trustees that are elected by the
Well, right,
drainage district.
correct.
are managing that money.
In the levy district as well. The
And they are
levy district
elected.
trustees, or which are elected by the
Correct.
property owners in the levy district, manage that money.
Yeah. So how they spend it is at the local level, and the fact that they have to spend it is decided in Des Moines.
well, like I say, it just seems a little confusing, double standards to me, and if you don't understand where I'm coming from, then
no, we,
Oh, I
I mean,
think we totally do.
we
I'd be more
completely,
than happy to write it up, and I think I've seen something about, at some point in time, you write up your concerns, and,
Yeah.
and I don't know if that's this meeting or another future meeting, or,
But do you understand that the thing I think that you're complaining about not having some of those taxes spread among, that's a Des Moines decision. That is not us. Des Moines is the one who's decided that these little pockets of property are gonna pay for the drainage or the levy and nobody else. That's not our call. That's beyond our ability to affect.
okay, does Des Moines have any input on the 3.4 million loan then, or whatever? That's strictly the county.
That I don't believe so.
we applied for this to try to get the funding matched, and that's probably,
Yeah.
you know, and again,
That's the spread.
we recognize it as a tax, but in all reality, this is an investment in us, in turn, looking at reinforcing that wall and that levee. I mean, again, if that were to fail, that's devastating to your farmland, that's devastating to all of those businesses. It basically could, you know, in a sense, you know, our well field could be completely contaminated, or drinking water.
Well,
So
I
there,
understand that.
those are,
That's-
that is why we
That's part
wanted
of
to
the
make it
reason
more of
that
a
the
larger
entire
piece.
area should be
Correct.
planned, not
Correct.
just 30% of the
So
people
that-
that happen to.
That situation and that challenge, I truly think that that's something you should bring to your drainage district. I understand what you may have mentioned in the past, but that's something that we don't have control over, that tax. I mean, we have had multiple discussions with that drainage district, with the levy district, to try to help, you know, incorporate what we're trying to do in this project, because in a sense, we're helping rebuild, we're helping rebuild some of their equipment, because we're all in the same interest. This county is the most important part of what we're trying to do, and trying to help do that.
Bill for rebuilding that pump.
Correct.
Where I can authorize to pay it one time, or put it on a 20-year thing,
Yes.
Right.
but once again, 30% of the people are paying to protect the whole
So,
town and GPC and all big
We're-
industries. It just doesn't seem really logical to me. It seems like a double standard. I guess I don't need to take a whole lot more of your time.
But I just wanna make sure
My
that.
lack of knowledge about this whole thing is
No.
probably the biggest
I
problem.
think we very much appreciate coming. I just want to make sure that it's clear that the laws that require those 30% or whoever, that those property owners only in that area to pay those taxes, even if the drainage district and the levy district benefit more than that, those laws are made in Des Moines.
Well, wasn't there a big lawsuit right here in Muscatine like 4 years ago or?
Well, what you're,
Picture that map and these are the people that pay taxes, but then you got all these voids of people that don't pay the taxes in the same general area. And I
That
looked
lawsuit
at after
was-
the
yeah.
fact, I looked at it after the fact, so I really don't.
Sure, no,
I just
no, and
been
that's-
told it was a matter of who had the most powerful lawyers, so I don't know if that's.
well, that was,
Makes sense to me.
that was I think you're referring to in 2016 or when the drainage district attempted to annex a number of properties, so I can't speak this morning, a number of properties into the drainage district.
Well, that would make sense to me based on what I'm seeing.
Yeah, and I think that, again, I don't wanna relitigate those things, but there are processes that they have to go through there, and I think that's where they fell short, was on the process that they utilized to do that. And I don't think that, I think we recognize as a board, I think that's why we're doing what we're doing
We're
here.
trying to spread it
You
out.
know, is that it is probably inherently unfair that all of the development that is done and how critical that area is to Muscatine County, and that there are a select number of landowners. You know, there's another complicating factor in here, and that this is, you know, a good portion of that land is Louisa County, not even Muscatine County. So again, Muscatine County, 15 miles of the levee, 11 of the 15 are in Louisa County or something like that that are kind of substandard, and that's a bit of a challenge for us too, because we can only control Muscatine County. So it's a complicated issue, but I don't think that anybody here disagrees with you that probably the landowners down there are probably, and I think that's our attempt. This is our attempt to kind of even that out. When we looked at this and funding this project and the work that needs to be done, there is no way that the landowners down there could afford to do this work without a broader levy, a tax levy. There's just no way it would happen. You would sink all the farms down there. They wouldn't make any money.
No,
They'd
I
go on.
understand that, and this could be working that direction right now.
Yeah.
On property taxes in general. I mean, I think if they keep going at the rate they're going, we probably wouldn't be no longer selling land, it's like paying people to take it. But, hopefully I've gotten my point across, it does appear to be a double standard. And, I'm more than happy to write it up at the appropriate point. I would like to say, is that here?
Well,
Is it a future meeting? or-
This is a public hearing, and all these minutes are taken, and it's, your comments and concerns are noted as a part of the public hearing.
Okay. And I guess that's pretty much done. I had one more thing, but maybe I can talk to this man over here after this meeting.
all right.
Yep.
Happens to be related to county road culverts, which I think you just discussed a little bit, so.
Thank you, Mr. Jerks.
Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you for your time.
Is there anyone else that would like to convey in this public hearing?
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
I got a motion by Santos,
I'll second.
second by Jeff to close the public hearing. This is a roll call vote. Jeff?
Aye.
Nathan?
Aye.
I vote aye. Santos?
Aye.
Doug?
Aye.
Public hearing is closed. Next is discussion and possible action to approve resolution 02282202, expressing intent to enter into loan agreement and providing for the levy of taxes.
I'll move the approval.
Second.
Motion by Jeff, second by Santos. This is a roll call vote as well. Jeff?
Aye.
Nathan?
Aye.
I vote aye. Santos?
Aye.
Doug?
Aye.
Motion passes. Next is discussion and possible action to approve resolution 02282203, resolution granting extension for filing the final plat of David W. Johnson Trust subdivision. Morning, Eric.
Morning. Yeah, this is just a simple, extension request for a small agricultural subdivision plat that was approved, well, over 90 days ago, and they just failed to get it recorded within the time that's allotted. We have a process within our ordinance for addressing that. So their attorney representing that family has filed the appropriate application and paid the fee for an extension to actually record that plat. Nothing's changed, they just didn't get it recorded within the allotted time.
Eric, I got a question, the way this ordinance is written, so it seems to me that the way it's written, the request for an extension can be made either during the 90-day period or after, but after there's the fee involved?
That's correct.
I'll move the approval.
Second.
I got a motion by Jeff, second by Santos. Let's see, this is a roll call vote as well. Jeff?
Aye.
Nathan?
Aye.
I vote aye. Santos?
Aye.
Doug?
Aye.
Motion passes. Next, Eric, we have, discussion and possible action to approve change order number 34 for the Muscatine County Jail Booking Expansion Project in the amount of $3,035.59. Do we wanna talk about all three at the same time?
I'm going to.
Okay.
You may have to take
And-
action on the three
Sure,
of them separately,
and,
the way they're listed.
In
but-
addition to number 34, change order number 35 in the amount of $4,532.04, as well as change order 36 in the amount of $4,679.57. Okay,
So a couple weeks ago, we received word from Swanson that Crawford Electric had some changeover in some of their project management staff and was working on some older change orders that we were not aware of. And it was just more or less a heads up at that point from Swanson. Mike and I responded that, okay, we'll take a look at the details, because we weren't provided any at that opportunity, but reminded them that we had processes in place for handling change orders, and so we did get the change orders proposed to us, which you see here, that go back, clear back to July. Mike's memo, perhaps is a little more diplomatic than I would have put it, when he said we don't dispute that the work was due to unforeseen conditions. I'm not comfortable, I guess, in saying that, because we were not given the opportunity to examine the apparent issues when they apparently arose. We had very clear processes established for change orders, including you folks having granted me the authority to approve them on the spot up to a certain dollar amount, all three of these, which would have fit within that dollar amount if it wasn't a circumstance that, jail function would have been disrupted or additional costs would have been incurred by waiting till the next Monday. None of these issues were brought to our attention at the time. And so I can't sit here and tell you that I was able to witness number one, the alleged problem that was discovered, or number two, the work that was actually apparently completed. And so I think that is why I know that is why Mike stands, and I wholeheartedly concur that we should not approve these. We had no opportunity to view the issue or the work that was apparently completed to address them.
This is for all three of them?
All three in the same circumstance. Different times, different issues, but all three, the same issue is there, that we were not given any notice that this problem had occurred.
But in their comments, they're saying some of it was like rework. So hypothetically, they say rework of electrical pulling of cables. I mean, if they did that, if you didn't see it and it's rework, we're basically saying I'm pulling this cable from that cable, I'm going back in here and I'm redoing it, it's behind a wall. How do I even know what they did?
Well, it's not just behind a wall.
I mean, I'm just thinking that as a hypothetical.
During demolition, so concrete was removed, where in at least two of these circumstances, conduit and wiring was apparently cut during demolition. Okay, well, that means it's exposed, and when it needed to be repulled or or repaired, there would have been opportunity for us to view it. And the new concrete has been poured over all of it. And so that's just, we told them that we would not be recommending that you approve this. And they, are always more than welcome to come in and, address the issue directly with you folks. You can, most likely it would be, Crawford via Swanson as a general contractor. And I don't see anyone here
And
at this point to do that.
how, I mean, we know that they're obviously billing because there's probably hours they need to have fulfilled or paid for services rendered. Knowing that we're going into change order number 36, I mean, this may end up still being a disputed item just if it's not approved today, but then how do we resolve this?
I would probably have to defer the best answer to Mike or even Jim, according to we'd have to look at the contract on disputes like that. I'm not, probably well versed enough to give you that answer, but yeah, it could be disputed. I'm sure there's a process for those types of disputes, and we may still get there, but they're not here to provide you with any other details other than what they provided us, which, in Mike and I's opinion, is not sufficient to warrant approval at this point. So that's.
Well, this is, so we have a process, it was communicated to the contractors up front. It's part of our contract. They did not follow the process, so as far as I'm concerned, they don't even exist. So I would make the motion, we not approve any of the change orders. And
Just table
they
them?
wanna
or-
take it to,
Second that.
they wanna take it into a dispute process, and we'd be happy to do that.
My only concern with that process is just the costs that are associated with our staff time for something like that. I mean, ultimately, you're talking $5,000, $7,000, $12,000, and so just think.
But my thought on this is, we've had other issues come up, they've contacted you, they know the process, they've been through the process.
That's correct.
I don't understand why these three projects didn't follow suit. I mean, there's no explanation in my mind for taking the steps that they took here. Makes no sense to me.
Your thoughts?
You put the shoe on the other foot, they wouldn't pay it.
You're looking at a $15,000 in change orders between the three. You have about $2,000 in materials, and if they're already in pulling wire in the same spot, I'm just trying to understand if this isn't just double billing us. If it was a wire that was cut and they were already extending wire, I think again, staff should have an opportunity to look at it. It's a process thing to me. I don't dispute that they did it. I don't have a problem with that, but it's like, we have a change order process in these projects like this. Anybody that's a commercial contractor should know a change order process.
And I wanna point out, from the very beginning, one of the very first change orders that was proposed for a temporary shoring wall, I questioned the amount, and we had some back and forth, and we settled on a not to exceed, and included them submitting hours actually worked, pay rates for those people to justify the not to exceed amount. And that was very early on, because we had some concerns that we expressed about some of the rates and whether it was justified. And so we established our concern.
And my understanding is the prime was not aware of this either.
That is my
This
understanding.
is the subcontractor
Yeah.
coming back after the fact and not even telling the prime, so that's,
Not happy.
I don't, again,
How much time do we have left on this project? I mean, how close are we?
They're working on a punch list right now, to push towards substantial completion. There was a few items that we were not willing to defer and grant substantial completion status until those were done. I would anticipate in the next week or two, those should be knocked out, with the caveat that a couple of those involve Johnson Controls, which
Yeah,
we're all
well, that's
aware.
different, yeah.
It can be a struggle, so I'd like to tell you that within 2 weeks, we should easily be at substantial completion. Now, with the arrival of warm weather, I know Brad Jiff had just mentioned to me that they're looking at doing some more concrete, here pretty soon. There's a few things that are obviously getting deferred till spring, final grading and this concrete work, but, that would not necessarily hold up substantial completion.
I just wanna continue to have a good relationship with them, just understanding that this is something that we need to kinda work through. I would challenge all of them, like you mentioned, I think that the process that they went through isn't probably a good working relationship as we requested in the beginning when they first came in.
Yeah, and I tend to believe that the general was not made aware that the club had encountered some issues and went ahead and fixed something either, because they've been, the general has been fairly good about, you know, I mean, calling out, hey, this is not within the scope of work, this happened. And that is how it was presented to us. This just came out of the blue from one of their subs, and they're pushing it through, but.
Yeah, I would, just as Jeff mentioned and Nathan, I would table them or decline them until further
So
evaluation.
we got a motion on the table to deny them.
Yeah, I've got a
That's why I said I
motion.
agree.
Yeah,
Just
I got a
table
motion by Jeff and a second by Nathan to deny these claims. I'll take a vote on that. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? They are denied.
I'm good with them all being done at once, Nancy?
Yep.
Okay.
Next, Eric, we've got discussion possible action to authorize increasing the credit card limit from $3,000 to $5,000 for the zoning office.
Yeah, currently we've got a $3,000 limit, which we've had, for some time on our we have a total of 3 credit cards that are all shared towards one total balance amount. However, the last couple of years, when my guys go to the International Code Council training in Minneapolis, which is their big training for the year that covers all the building codes, between the conference fee and hotels for a week, depending on if we have something carrying over from the previous month's statement and the way hotels charge. Like last year, they got up there and their credit card was apparently maxed out based on the holds of the hotels. I was able to quickly, just with a verbal through Nancy, get it raised for 1 month. Credit cards no longer are handled directly at First National Bank. It's through PTM, TCM? TCM. I can't just do that quickly. It's a lot longer process. And so I'm just asking that we raise it to $5,000. It would give us that way we won't have an issue when they do their large conference with the hotels and conference fees. We have recently set up online access where now I have up to the minute access on our credit cards. I can view transactions that hopefully is gonna make things, adds a whole nother level of easy transparency and stuff. So I'm just asking we up it to address the issues.
Cause all these bills and I don't know how the county processes credit card payments. You probably wait till a summary bill and it's paid off of that, or?
We wait for the invoice. We have most of the offices set up now, so they have online access. When First National Bank stopped handling the credit card and passed it on to this other company, we were having problems with all departments getting late fees, because of our billing cycle and the timing of their invoices or their monthly statements. So I think we have pretty much everybody set up now. They're able to go online and access that monthly statement as soon as it comes out, as opposed to the 10 days it takes to get it mailed here.
Right.
So I think we've addressed that problem.
And then we have a 2-week wait on the claims process, right?
Depending on the timing.
So you could, it'll be a challenge for us to be, you could have 3 weeks.
Absolutely, easily.
Or more, and they're probably 30-day term on those before a late fee. So, most of these credit card processors are getting more difficult like that with the outstanding plus the encumbered, and then again, if you have, I noticed some gas stations are putting large dollar holds on at pumps, pay at pumps and all of that, and it causes a problem. So I think that it makes sense to, do you think that's, have we done this to most of our users like
Most of
this?
our other departments have at least a $5,000 limit, so I have
So I
no
would move the
concerns.
approval, I think it makes sense.
Second.
Motion by Jeff, second by Doug. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Anything else?
Yeah,
Eric?
I'll just give you an update on a very recent issue that we're having over at the jail. On Friday, Oscar called me to let me know that they'd been summoned, early Friday morning, Thursday, about a sewer line obstruction, which is not uncommon in the jail. However, they've had some very recent back-to-back backups, some of it in the area where construction had occurred. Oscar's staff had worked and worked to try to clear an obstruction, was unable to get it cleared. Oscar had concern that there might be construction debris in the line. I told him, let's get a local contractor in here with a camera and a larger unit to clear that. So we did that. We had Kelly Heating and Plumbing come down. They worked and worked and worked. There's some sort of obstruction in one of these lines, we feel. We saw some very questionable images, is I guess the way I'll put it at this point on the camera, that things don't quite look right within these sewer lines. The issue right now is we've got 2, if not 3 holding cells that are down that we're not able to utilize, that should be fully at our disposal at this point because of this obstruction. I emailed, we uploaded the video footage on the conference call with Mike and the engineer. We all kind of came to an agreement that we're leaning towards things don't look right here in this area of construction. I asked that Swanson get right on this. They were emailed later in the day, Friday, by the time we had our meeting with the engineers. And met with Dan early this morning. They're going to try to get a plumber down to address the issue, but I've stressed to them this needs to be done as soon as possible. We thought it was fair to give them the opportunity to fix it if they could get moving, as opposed to just having someone fix it and then giving them the bill. I thought, you know, in all transparency, they need to see what the issue is as well. However, I wanna let you know, if they cannot move or do not move in a reasonable time, we need to take steps to do that, and then we'll have to look at back billing. But we felt it was appropriate to give them the opportunity to fix it and possibly own it. And if it's not their mistake, then, you know, then we deal with it. But there's some very concerning images from some of that cameraing, and we do have an issue right now, and we will not have use of those holding cells until that is addressed.
What size is that line?
4, I think it's 4-inch line. Yeah.
So there's a possibility you could like water jet that out of the
Well,
Quad Cities. There's
so
a place that can do that.
They're proposing that as of this morning. My concern is if there's construction debris, are we going to push it into an even deeper area where we're cutting concrete?
Well, the camera should. They got the water jets that have the cameras on them already.
Yeah.
I mean, the problem of it is how are you going to get it out anyway?
Yeah, I mean, our feeling from what we were able to view on the camera and watching the contractor make multiple attempts with different kinds of heads, there's something hard they're running into. The heads on the snakes were coming out shined
Come
up.
back, yeah, with something on it.
And they were not able to get a hold of anything, you know, that would typically be a
Hairball or
obstruction.
something,
Yeah,
yeah.
plastic bags, towels, clothing, and so, the other issue with the jet, and I need to, as soon as we're done, I gotta meet with Captain McCleary, potentially running hoses through multiple doors, cause the machine typically sets up outside. We have a secure facility that has to remain functional, and we don't have the ability often to have doors propped open. It becomes very difficult to maintain that security, but we're gonna work through that, try to come up with a solution to let them go through the steps they're recommending, I guess, at this point. But I just wanted you to be aware that we may need to just step in and make a decision to get it addressed.
Yeah, I would probably do that and then back build them, but most of those places that do that service do have a camera system that will go in there, and then they'll be able to go right in afterwards, or
Yeah.
obviously tell you what the potential is, and they've seen it probably more than what the plumber, because nobody here locally will do that.
What's that, jet?
The jet that does here, that'll be out of the Quad Cities, that'll come out. Kelly's will go in there with their snakes, multiple snakes, and come back, but yeah. It's a good
It looks like a broken piece of pipe maybe in there, jammed in there.
Yeah,
That's what it looks like.
that's possible. That we were having trouble in certain areas getting a good image, because when you get to the obstruction, it's holding water, and your camera doesn't work well in clouded water, so you can't see everything. We were catching glimpses that there may be a piece of broken cast. But just in the area where the issue was where recent work was done, where there was some new PVC tied on to existing cast. There was concrete that was cut out and replaced in that area. So there's just a lot of red flags popping up in our minds, and just the inability for several people to clear it. It's more than just a typical obstruction that we see in the jail.
Then you make me think that probably we should push back to give them the opportunity to recognize it, because then if you do end up grabbing that piece, hypothetically, let's say it is a piece of PVC or something, if there's a way we can, hey, this is from you, not from us, type thing.
Well, that's why I stress that county staff needs to be involved in witnessing the diagnosing of the problem and the proposed fix. I'm just not comfortable based on our experience the last week or so with, well, we jetted it, we've cleared the obstruction. Well, for now, you know, there's still things on that camera that we saw that don't look quite right. We wanna see and be fully, comfortable with having been cleared and probably repaired. So, it's just kind of an FYI. right
Yep,
now.
no, appreciate you doing the right steps.
All right, thanks, Eric. Next up is items with engineer Keith White. Discussion and possible action to approve various utility permits.
Yes, we have one today from Muscatine Power and Water, Muscatine, Iowa, and that's to, bore a fiber optic line, beneath Boxcar Road at house 2326. So recommend approval. Very simple and straightforward.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Santos, second by Nathan. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Project updates.
Douglas Avenue Bridge. We're waiting final reimbursement from the DOT. Once we have that, that project will be closed out. It does need seeded at some point, and so we can either bring the contractor back at the agreed rates or do it ourselves. We haven't decided what's gonna happen there. 171st Street, the closure was delayed to a week from today, for March 7th, which we notified SSAB and Harsco. And, you know, we'll see with the weather this week if that changes anything. But, I mean, the simple of it was the subcontractors that were going to do some work were not gonna be there this week, so why close the road? That's the short of it.
And that's communications that you're having with the Prime?
Yeah.
Okay.
And York Avenue Bridge, Schroeder, he's one of the subs. There, he was Douglas Avenue, he's the structure sub out there. He's talking July for the bridge on York Avenue. Again, subject to change. Pavement markings, advanced traffic control has told us late spring, plan to be done in June, but saying it is supply dependent. So we get any more updates, we'll give you those. We left the culverts today, and we'll come back to that. I think that's all I have in the project arena. Any questions? Concerns?
I just wanna make sure that we continue to communicate with that 171st Street and Ward Avenue work going over at SSAB. I think if they ultimately start that project without continuing that feedback with SSAB and the Prime, I think those are the major concerns from how much damage we could do on Ward Avenue, so.
Because I should mention, we did rock the road last week.
Okay.
In preparation. It's not the time of the year we normally like to do that, but in preparation. I mean, we did that before we knew there was gonna be any shift, but it was a good thing to get down. We got a little warm weather, maybe it'll tie down a little bit.
Yep.
Warm weather coming, I'm wondering what the roads are gonna do if frost comes out.
We'll find out.
Yeah. This week's gonna hurry that process a little bit.
Yes, it will. Any other items, Keith?
Well, we were able to check the math on the bids received this morning, and the bid from PCI was correct. They were all correct, and they were low, so I'd recommend award to PCI Construction.
So I'd move the approval of the bid from PCI Construction.
Okay, I've got a motion by Jeff, second by Nathan to award the bid to PCI. All in favor, let's see. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion passes.
I will comment, the prices reflected where the market's headed. They were up there, but I do not think we gain anything by not going ahead. It's only gonna get worse, so.
If I just looked at the spread, it looked like, actually PCI was lower than I would expected.
Yes.
Everybody else seems to be in the same ballpark, so.
But, you know, we compare off of the last time we bid similar work plus a considerable increase and they're still above that. And again, if you look at the groupings of bids, I don't think there's anything to be gained by not awarding it.
Where did it come into your estimates? How much higher?
Well, we normally
Don't share those.
give out our estimate.
And that'll
If
be
you're good
fine.
at math and I answered that for you, you could probably figure that out. You know, normally 10 or 15% is acceptable. The DOT, you know, what we've seen with the DOT in recent history is they just send you the numbers anyway. Normally in the past, let's say it was 20 or 25, you know, they would just flat out reject it. They don't even do that anymore. But we were more than that.
Yeah. Well, again, that was a conversation we had.
Scott was talking about transit buses the other day, maybe more in the neighborhood of that number,
Yeah.
so.
Well, I think that's, the thing is, we talked about all the infrastructure money that came out and, there were no increase in the number of contractors. So I'm suspecting we're gonna lose a ton of that money to price, just like we did when they did the big gas tax.
Yeah.
You can't take big sweeps like this, cause there's just not the capacity and you're gonna lose it all the price.
They're all fighting for the
Printing
same
money
services.
doesn't work? Oh, man.
Doesn't work?
I wish someone had known that ahead of time.
Thanks, Keith.
All right.
Yeah.
Real helpful.
Next up is discussion of possible action to approve the minutes of the February 21, 2022 regular meeting.
Approved.
Motion by Santos, second by Nathan. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Correspondence. Doug, do you have any correspondence?
Just the email I got from Nathan about Janet Veterans Affairs
Okay,
resignation. That's all I had.
all right. Santos?
I had follow up with Keith on the county road that we just talked about with SSAB when I had reached out to SSAB in regards to that same project, just concerns and comments to them, sharing where we're at on 171st Street and Ward Avenue. They did share that they were looking at options potentially of maybe even putting a spot somewhere where they can have another entrance, but at that time they had not communicated that. They said they were going to keep that up to speed with us. I also had a meeting with Oscar last week and Jeff Shive from the Data Power Technology with the geothermal. And they took some readings. They took quite a bit loading on the pumps, and they're following up with trying to get a load calculations that they're going to be doing for that geothermal. I also had an email that I had submitted and followed up with on the Levy project with Cleaner and Associates. They did share with us that the pump is all of the pump parts are rehabbed, and now we're in the process of actually rebuilding. They had some challenges with the right angle gear for the reduction going in from the generator actually into the pump. They say that they have now resolved that, and they are at the point where they'll start getting those parts in. There might be a lead time on that right ankle gear. I also asked him where we were at on the overall levy itself, as far as the scheduling, the timing, and when that work's going to go on. And he said that they were now working with topographical items. They were doing the right-of-way surveying. They still had archaeological stuff they needed to do with the wetlands, and then they were following up with the meeting with the Corps on the height overall for the what the height needed to be. So if it was going to be adjusted a few inches or whatnot. And that's what I had from the levy. I also had a meeting with American relief dollars that we have with with the city and with the school board. They shared what they were doing. The city was what they had separated. A lot of the dollars, they had some loan dollars they were putting over for the south side of Muscatine. The school board shared that they were doing quite a bit of HVAC work. They were going to put in about $2 million of their dollars into the Susan Clark School, and they were continuing to put a lot into cybersecurity as well too. I believe that's all I had
Okay,
for correspondence.
okay. I had an email from Dave Reagan in response to an expansion that they're looking at doing down at Tantera, and his concern was the regulation, I guess, in regard to if they're going to do a remodel on existing in their shop, that it would trigger that they would have to have sprinklers in the old shop, as well as they're looking at doing a 5,000 square foot expansion to this on the north side that of course would have to be sprinkled as well. And we talked about that situation, and I met with Eric and talked about the different options that may be available to just look at what might be out there and what they can think about and their architect can think about. And because it's incredibly costly, and you've got these small business operators that are trying to run operations, grow their business, been in Muscatine area for decades. And you know, we always talk about picking winners and losers, and you know, the state of Iowa has taken in the agricultural business, and there's some awful nice shops, some big shops out there in the countryside that don't have to be sprinkled, that are working on trucks, tractors, big machinery, got fuel, got lubricants, got all kinds of things. And the more I think about this, the more it just really bothers me in what kind of pressure is on independent for-profit business like this in the form of regulation. With a expansion of this size, it's a substantial amount of money, and the cost of sprinkling, most folks realize, is incredibly substantial as well, as far as a percentage of the project. Now, I've got several buildings of my own. I was working in one of my shops that's just slightly under 5,000 square feet, and I'm thinking about what the role of the sprinkler system is per se. And you got a 5,000 square foot building, that's really not very big. I mean, if you've got a single level building, obviously the sprinkler system is designed for safety and to save lives, obviously. But you have the proper doors for ingress and egress, and being able to, in a 5,000 square foot building, to recognize, if you're working in there, to recognize, if it's an open shop type of situation, to recognize that there is a fire, an issue in that regard. I think the threat to loss of life or death is very, very small in that size of an environment. Now, if you've got buildings that are multi-level, numerous rooms that people are working in, that's a different story. Of course, I also don't know if you have a situation, and according to the way the code reads, that if you don't have it sprinkled, maybe your insurance is null and void. I don't know that answer. I don't know that. But
A lot of those are driven usually by fire codes.
sure, I understand. The point I'm making here is it is so difficult for small business to, number one, make money and exist. Number two, to expand, to employ more people, provide more service, so on and so forth. And this is just kind of my own 2 cents worth of being a person that's business driven entrepreneur.
Well,
And-
you know, one of the questions I have, and I don't, it's my lack of understanding. So we adopted Muscatine County somewhere around the year 2000 something, adopted zoning. So if you have adopted zoning ordinances, do you automatically, adopt building codes like IBC, IRC? Because one of the challenges I have is that we have these code bodies, and if you ever do any research on them, these are not elected people. These are industry insiders that are pushing agendas, in my mind, of many of them. Well, for example, the head of the ICE, International Code Council that would recommend these fire safety improvements, runs a fire safety engineering company. That seems a little bit like the fox watching the hen house to me. And I'm more of a free person. I think that there ought to be a business decision around that. And I think probably most of you have heard me say, I think that elected officials get lazy, and these code councils adopt these codes, and then they generate all kinds of nonsense that I think are not all well grounded in science. I think they've lost the intent of the original code. If it's a true life and health and safety thing, I'm good with it. Everybody is. But some of these are choices in my mind. They're business decisions, and I don't wanna make a business decision for somebody else. That's their job. So I don't know what our latitude is. If we have adopted zoning and we say that this is an International Code Council recommendation, and we say, well, we're not gonna enforce it, is there liability on this board of any stretch?
So
Do you?
When we were on
I mean, I don't think it's attached to zoning, I think it's attached to the building
Right.
permit process, and that process would normally adopt a standard code to govern and control that process. So I would presume that's exactly where it's come from. And so,
Some of the building codes that were adopted as part of our ordinance, there's certainly exceptions in there. Items that we have excluded out of that.
Yeah, all the codes that I've ever read all say that the local jurisdiction has the option. They're adopted or not adopted by the local jurisdiction. And quite frankly, I think some of these code councils are getting out of control personally, because they're driving costs.
Yeah.
And I don't know that there's good science behind what they're getting out of it.
You guys remember when Eric brought up these new heads for the fire hydrant and I think I even asked, I'm like, well, can't you just buy the part? No, you gotta buy the whole thing. They don't sell just this little nipple that goes in through the pipe or whatever. And it was a ridiculous cost, kind of similar to that same thing. I mean, it's a challenge on some of those things. I think as most city ordinances have, when they adopt those, they basically clearly state out, you can exclude these pieces, you can follow this, we don't have to have 6-inch sidewalks, we can have 4.5-inch, whatever it may come back to, but I think those are simple discussions. Anything that's in the city, we have to follow those regulations. If we have something like in this case, I think the piece that runs into what Jim mentioned as far as the permitting process, for example, if we don't put it in and they require it, then they're obviously not gonna get your occupancy permit.
Why?
Well,
We
because
issue those.
because I'm just saying in the city, that's how they would do that, because the fire department comes in here and says, oh yeah, you have this, and your fire sprinkler systems are tied into your Johnson's controls, which is another whole, circle that we've been challenged with, but But I think that, you know, in the county, you know, those are things that, obviously, it's the safety and the concerns that go around some of those things that we put ourselves in that challenge to look at that and saying, what, you know, what is it? Because obviously we grandfather everybody else in,
Yeah.
you know, and now we're just saying, okay, if it's old or if it's new, you know, how does that come into being? And the liability that would go back on the homeowner or the business.
And if you read, cause we have more than one of these situations going on right now.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And I actually read the code, I went out and reviewed it, and, you know, there are so many exemptions, you know, you can go, if you have I think the GVW of the vehicle, if it's over 10,000 pounds that you're working on, basically you have to sprinkle this place, for 5,000 feet, which is, like Scott said, if you're working on a big vehicle, 5,000 feet's nothing, right? You know, some of those are, you know, and clearly, it would say if we adopted these codes, every farm shed in the county would have to be sprinkled. Well, that makes zero sense.
Right.
First off is, do you have the water supply? You know, cause now all of a sudden you gotta build holding tanks and, you know, dry systems, wet system, the cost would be prohibitive. And, you know, it's all about, you know, protecting lives. You know, I know even, I think I read some things on one where they were attaching a office to it. Well, yeah, you have to put the sprinklers in the shop, but if you put a 1 hour firewall, you don't need to do the offices. And like, well, wait a minute. That's more likely where you get people unaware of a fire than somebody out in the work area. So I don't know what I think. I just feel like government is getting over involved in that case. That's more of a business decision, but how do you deal with that from a code perspective?
Well, as long as you defer, and you probably have to with the level of expertise that's necessary, as long as you defer code construction to quote-unquote groups of experts, that's gonna happen, unfortunately, I think. You'd have to, either as a body, sit as like a super code board, or, you know, have someone knowledgeable enough to go through every line of, or, you know, sub-paragraph of the ordinance and say, except for this, except for this, except for this, and I'm all for trying to do that. I fear that it's by delegating so much of our authority, we've brought this problem, and not just we, but all government
Collectively.
agencies, brought this problem on themselves.
Yeah, I mean, I see it every day, you know, handrails, we deal with people, you know, they must be graspable, define graspable. And you get into all kinds of big, well, I don't like that, that's not what I want, this is what, you know, so now all of a sudden you have people that are paying for something, it's their home, it's their property. And or someone as a code expert is telling them how it needs to look and be, it's like, I'm not on board with that.
That's the whole technocracy problem.
It's the, you know, so I don't know how you
The
deal
only-
with
the
it, but
only
I think
way-
that's an issue.
Yeah, is possibly reviewing the codes and then amending them as far as what ordinances we've already applied. So what, for example, this, you know, business that you mentioned, Scott, I mean, it would be us reviewing what that ordinance was, what that is, and then saying, do we allow for exemptions? Do we allow for special use permits for that? I don't know. I mean, that would really be the discussion, depending on, again, you know, what type of liability then in a sense would go back to them. And I think that's all in how we interpret that.
Well, and it kinda goes back to me, it's like a building permit, right? You know, we issue building permits and then we inspect. Does that open a liability to the county? That we're saying that this is now done properly, and, you know.
That's the gray area that I don't agree with how they do that. Yes, we somehow in a sense say that we are certifying that we inspected it, but if that building were to fall over and tornado were to take it, then the county's never liable. It's basically saying it was, you know, that was done on the construction, or they didn't do that
Well,
right.
you've gotta have ministerial, immunity for government agencies.
That's, it pretty much is, and so, yeah, it's, but you wanna have some sort of structure to make sure that there's not processes and steps, you know, cut corners type things, and then, you know, we run into that, so it's kind of a balance.
Well, it goes to, you know, harken back to a number of years ago, you know, when we do subdivisions, we have, you know, roads and we have requirements that we say they're supposed to meet, and they submit plans and say, and I actually lived in a subdivision where we permitted it and it was authorized, and those roads weren't built to what they drew. They weren't the same. So do we have an obligation, if we're gonna have a permitting process, to have to make sure, you know, it's about protecting the taxpayer, right? Because we're taxing that property as a valued and improved property. So do we have an obligation to make sure that it was done properly? I mean, that's a world we've not been in. I'm not sure I think we need to be in it. You know, kind of it's buyer beware to me, but, I mean, if you look at some of these, you know, I think Keith had mentioned to us a couple of weeks ago, you know, about roads, you know, and I think you said, Keith, the county in Scott County owns like, all the roads in the county, right? Subdivisions and all. I don't think we wanna get into that game, because that's a whole nother layer of investment for snow removal and all kinds of stuff that, you know, we're not a municipality. We don't wanna be a city. You know, look at the city's taxes. You know, you pay more in city tax than you do on the county tax. You know, so I think these are areas you have to say, what's the role of government? What are we gonna do and what are we not gonna do?
Well, thanks for winding us up there, Scott.
Well, I mean, I've been thinking about this ever since I got this email, and you know, first off, they want to make an addition on, and the shop that they've worked in for umpteen years now, being as they're going to do some, I'll just say improvements without knowing everything they're gonna do, they comes back and tells them that now they have to sprinkle that, and a new addition that's gonna go on the north side, the new shop, has to be sprinkled as well, and, I don't know, in how many ever years that shop's been there, which has been a lot, I just don't understand why this business operation has to incur this cost in an environment that has been operating safely. I don't think that the workforce there, risk has increased, for being injured or killed. I just think it's such an unnecessary expense for these operations. That's the point I'm making. I mean, cause I look back to where, in my own personal situations, and,
So would it be something that we could look at possibly putting as a discussion to say, hey, what would it need to look like, and asking Eric that?
I think we should put it on for discussion.
Just
have-
something that just
have
maybe
Eric-
have some feedback and options so we know what really it would look like. Because I think there is value, maybe it would be in, you know, additions to existing versus completely new. I don't know, something
Well,
like that would be.
I can tell you what I've learned in the last week is basically the buildings have to be, created in basically 5,000 square feet or less increments,
Well,
which is totally impractical.
well, I can tell you that that's not even true, because, you know, there's, you know, like in my business, if you have a wood shop, it has to be sprinkled, period. Anything new, it's 1 square foot or 5,000. It's like, but if I ran an auto body shop, it wouldn't need to be. Same chemicals, why are we picking winners and losers? It's these, you know, some of this just makes no sense.
Right.
And, you know, quite frankly, in my business, I would prefer not to have sprinklers, because if I had a fire at that level, with all the electronics and stuff, I'd just soon wipe it all out. Because I don't wanna try to rebuild it, because you'll destroy those machines. You literally would, you're not gonna repair them.
Well, how about we just put that as something that we follow up, so that way we.
And one more point that I didn't think of
Okay,
that I wanna
alright.
make, is that okay?
Yeah, fine.
One more point
Just
that I'm
trying to
thinking, that I thought about here, in both these instances that we're talking about, Jeff, both these operations, if they did burn down, would not interfere per se, would not have a threat to neighboring bodies or neighboring buildings or anything. And if you happen to drive down on whatever day that was, when at the scrapyard down there, they had that fire.
Oh,
That's a classic example of, you've got all these other businesses a distance away, and that was a raging fire, wasn't it?
It was big.
It was a raging fire. But to my knowledge, their neighbor in Musco Lighting was not affected, at all, other than as far as their properties and so on and so forth. You know, and that's what I'm speaking of here, in that both these operations, if by some fluke, they did burn down. And I don't think by having sprinklers or not having sprinklers changes that threat at all, in my mind, not at all. And, so it's one thing if you got them lined up side by side, but it's another thing when you've got freestanding operations with
Acres.
acres and hundreds of feet between any other ownership of other properties and things. You know, and that's a big point in my mind. That's a big point. I'm done talking
That's
now.
another
so
valid point.
I'm done talking.
No, you brought up a good point.
So, what do we wanna do? Do we want?
I think we should put something on the agenda, talk with Eric, and say, come to the board with some
Some ideas.
potential solutions.
Do that next week, maybe?
No, just, well, probably give him 2 weeks. I mean, give him time. No,
Oh, he's got
that's-
time.
Oh, you don't need to give him that much time.
Right.
He's trust me, Eric is knee deep in it, and he would be happy for some
Right,
guidance.
he's probably sick of talking to me anyway.
All right, okay.
He's knee
All
deep
of
in
these,
I've
it.
talked to him a
all of
bunch
these
this
things, and
week.
he's not here today.
He's been dealing with another building for.
All right, we're gonna move on and, correspondence with Nathan.
Wow, I gotta file that. I had somebody complain about a road. I shared it with Keith. Let's see. I had. You got me all distracted now. Had obviously the conversation or the email from our veterans director, Jennifer, and just want to thank her for great service and wish her the best as she moves on to another opportunity. That is, I mean, other than what we've already discussed, that would do it.
Okay. Jeff, you have anything else to add?
Correspondence, nothing to note. I think that's plenty.
How about, committees, Jeff?
We had the conference board on Tuesday, the public hearing on the assessor's budget.
And, maybe Farm Bureau?
Yeah, and then also on Tuesday evening, I attended the Farm Bureau not annual meeting, with their board meeting, with a number of questions about what the county's doing, where they are, what's going on.
Okay. All right, Nathan?
Also had the conference board. What else did we have? Had the Mississippi Valley Workforce Authority Finance Committee and CEO meetings on the 23rd, I believe. Which, yeah, was at the same time as Bi-State, so I wasn't at the Bi-State meeting.
Okay.
Some interesting things going on there with our fiscal agent. We've been having some difficulties with, and they've given us 90 days notice to cancel their.
Ooh,
Yeah,
where are you gonna go?
I don't know, but as our good friend Jim from Clinton says, they're taking their toys and going home. So we're gonna have to figure that out. But we've been having a lot of challenges getting billings on time, and I see it as an opportunity to move forward.
Yeah, I just wonder who will do it. And at what cost.
Yeah.
But has funding, you've unwound it from the community college system, so now I think you have a better picture of what funding really looks like, and I think there, it appears that there's ample dollars there
Yeah.
to deal with it.
Yeah, we do have dollars to deal with it, it's just, yeah, it's just the, if not growing pains, transition pains. I think that we're gonna get this thing squared away, we've got good people working on it, you know, I've got every faith in our,
CEO?
exactly, and frankly, the folks she's hired, I think are quite good as well.
Okay.
Nathan, will you make sure to keep me in that loop, cause that affects what we do as employer of record?
I surely will,
Thank you.
That everything then, Nathan?
I believe so.
Okay. On the 21st, I had the Conservation Board. They had a discussion about their rates, their rental rates and that for camping and cabins and so on and so forth. Got several people lined up for summer work. On the 22nd, I attended the Conference Board as well as Farm Bureau with Jeff. And on the 23rd, had a bi-state meeting, and they had a gentleman there to talk about the potential of flooding this up and coming spring, and the risk was at normal or slightly below normal in regard to flood risk being 15 feet or lower. So that was pretty good news, but that can change overnight. And
Takes a little rain.
yeah, and that's all I had. Santos, committees?
No committees.
Nothing? Doug?
None.
Nothing? Okay, very good. Items with the administration office. Discussion and possible action to approve an application for a FY 22-23 Iowa Burn Justice Assistance Grant, JAG, in the amount of $34,000.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Jeff, second by Santos. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Next is action to accept the February 2022 payroll claims.
Move to approve.
Motion by Jeff, second by Santos?
Yep.
They have that, okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Nancy, anything else?
I do not have anything else.
Okay. Next is receive information from county employees. Do I have any county employees that would like to address the board on anything? Doesn't appear that way. Next is receive comments from the public. Is there any other comments to come forward from the public? Seeing none, we are adjourned.